it's Monday, May 16th, 2022, and I'm Diane Barrett, and I'm Maura Joffrey. We're with the BE Collection. We're interviewing Donna Hitchens. How did I say that?
That's correct.
Okay, correct, good. And how do you spell it?
Hitchens.
Perfect. Hey. Who referred you to us?
NCLR.
Great. They're doing a great job referring wonderful people to us.
Good.
So I'm going to ask some simple questions. We're just going to have a conversation. So where were you born?
Washington, D.C., 1947.
1947. That's a good year.
Yeah.
And do you have siblings?
No, I'm an only child.
Huh. What was that like?
What's that?
Did you like being an only child?
Oh, I didn't. I did not.
As a personal question, we have one daughter. So
I have two daughters.
I noticed that. So did you adopt your children?
Yes.
Huh. Our daughter is also adopted.
Yeah. We in fact were the first same-sex couple to do a second parent adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And we were one of the first two to do a co-parent adoption.
So you're a pioneer. When did you do your adoptions?
Well, where did we do it? In San Francisco.
What year was that?
Let's see. Our oldest daughter was born in 82. Her adoption was finalized in 83. And our second daughter was born in 85. And her adoption was, I think, finalized in 85. They're 37 and 39 now.
That's our daughter was born in 1994.
Wow.
I know.
Oh, she's now
27.
Yeah.
And that was a rather lengthy event because we went all the way to the appeals court before it was final.
You did? Yes. Wow, and we had already done ours and you had to go to the appellate court?
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough.
It's quite a story.
That it is.
It worked out fine, but going through it was very difficult.
No, it's very stressful.
Yes, you know that.
Yes, I do know that. We had a contested hearing on one of ours.
Did you?
With the court, yeah, because the state wouldn't recognize the adoption by two women, but we prevailed at the lower court, and they didn't appeal.
Mm-hmm. That was good.
Yeah.
No, we learned a lot about the law. My father's an attorney. He said, "You're not going to win this." I didn't want to hear that, but you know.
I bet.
And he was happy when it worked out as it did. So
yeah, I bet.
An important person in our daughter's life. That was great.
Well, we have a 2.5-year-old grandson,
Mm-hmm.
and both of his mothers live nearby. So, having grandkids just brings you great joy. I'm sure your dad does.
We're not experiencing that, right? But my friends like being grandmothers, so.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
Good.
It is. It is.
So how did you get from where you were born into San Francisco? What was your process?
Well, I went to college and graduate school in Massachusetts. Then I took a job as an assistant dean of students at the University of Maine. And after 4 years there, I really felt like I was sort of in the counseling profession. They kept trying to change people instead of the environment, and especially women. So I decided to go to law school, and I applied in several different states. My partner at the time, and she applied for jobs, and I applied for law school, and we ended up in California, which
good.
is great. Yes. And then never wanted to leave one time since. Never, ever. I love the Bay Area.
Right. We like California. We like Los
Oh, yeah.
Angeles. I came up on Route 66 from Chicago with my
Oh, okay.
from high school, right? We were all
Nancy's
in college. Is she?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
so are we going to interview her?
Yeah.
We'll sign her up after this. But
Okay.
no, and Marge came.
I was born in Long Beach,
Where?
California.
Oh, okay.
My parents moved to Eastern Oregon,
Uh-huh.
which is not a place I wanted. I grew up there, but not a place I wish to stay. So
Yeah.
after college and medical school, I came to California again.
Ah. And never wanted to leave?
Never wanted to leave California.
Yes.
I don't think I ever did want to leave California. It was not a choice at the time.
We met each other at LA County Hospital. I was a head nurse in orthopedic surgery, and she was an orthopedic surgery resident.
Wow.
That was
You don't
20 years
see many women in orthopedic surgery.
Yeah, there are more now. When I finished training and took my boards, I was the 25th woman in the United States to be board.
Wow. Congratulations.
Well, it just happened. I'm going to say it just happened. The head of the Department of Orthopedics liked me and offered me a residency, and I took it on a grab.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah,
That's fabulous. Fabulous.
because it fits with my personality and my physical abilities.
Uh-huh.
J. Paul Harvey Jr. was
Yeah.
the chief of staff of orthopedics. Wonderful man, right?
Good.
It was wonderful for me because I didn't
Yeah.
think I'd get in. There just weren't that
You
many.
did.
And he supported our relationship, even when she,
That's even better.
right,
Yeah.
he's now deceased, but it was a big step, I'm sure, for him.
I
He called me
probably
the counselor's daughter, and he called her the doctor. So he made it look great. So, and so what about your sexuality? At what point did you know that you were a lesbian, or did you think that you might be?
I didn't really know until the first time I fell in love with a woman,
Uh,
and that was in 1971. And I was already out of college and graduate school by then. So,
You were out of law school by then?
no, not out of law school. When we came to California, and then later I met Nancy, and we've been together ever since 1976. So, but I was out of undergrad and my master's program when I first figured it out.
mhm. I couldn't even say the word lesbian.
Really.
It was very one of those.
Yeah.
I didn't even know the word until I was in college.
Oh, wow.
Sophomore in college before I even knew the word. I knew what I was, but I didn't know the word.
The word for it. Yeah. Well, those times were very different than
Mhm.
now.
We thought what's really important to document, and it would have been for us, was your careers, your choices, how you got there, and your sexuality. Did it impact it positively, negatively? And be a research project of sorts. We document for the archives whether you have sexual any lesbians or gay men in your relationship in your family genetically. Do you have any?
None.
Right.
None.
Except your daughter, which is sort of rare.
Well, actually, both of my daughters
Oh.
are lesbian,
Uh-huh.
and they're both married to women.
How great is that?
I really don't tell Pence.
Right. We won't. No worries there.
Yeah.
I think this is the first that we've heard.
We had one interview person that she and her sisters, there were three of them, were all lesbians.
Oh, really?
And only one had experienced a heterosexual marriage before she came out.
Uh-huh.
That was interesting.
But
I have a
that's
friend
it.
whose brother is gay, and she told her mother that she was gay, and she said, so?
Yeah.
'Cause she didn't mean it to her, but she'd already gone through it with her brother, so.
Yeah. Well, my younger daughter's wife's brother is also gay.
Huh,
So they were the only two children in that family, and they're both gay. And their mother was very supportive.
mhm, that's great.
Yes.
How about your own parents?
No. They were not it. Well, my father died before I came out.
Uh-huh.
My mother and the man she eventually married, my stepfather, were very homophobic.
Mhm.
And in fact, my stepfather once said he thought all gay people should get the death penalty. And I said, well, thanks a lot, Charlie. And he said, well, not you. And I'm like, oh, right. I guess I'm a good queer.
That's right.
But
Wow.
they were not happy.
Did you live with them?
Oh, no, never. No.
Well, that was good.
They lived out in the DC area. So I only saw them once in a while.
Mhm, good. And your father, what kind of work did he do?
Oh, he did all kinds of things. He only had an 8th grade education.
Mhm.
So he had various jobs that didn't require higher ed or technical skills.
Mhm.
And my mother was a clerk, a billing clerk for DC government.
So who's been the most inspiring mentor in your life?
The most inspiring mentor. Well, I really have to say Nancy,
Uh-huh.
because
Go
when
ahead.
I was
Sure
when
is.
I when I was in law school, Nancy was a co-founder of Equal Rights Advocates, which is a public interest law firm that does sex discrimination cases. And it's a really impressive place. And I did an externship there. And that's when I met Nancy. And she really encouraged me just before we became lovers to really branch out, to do public interest law, to embrace my passions. And as a result of that, even after my externship, I continued to work for Equal Rights Advocates. And that's when I decided, with a lot of support from them, to start the Lesbian Rights Project, which eventually evolved into NCLR. And
That's
she was,
Well-known.
impressive. Yeah, very impressive.
Yeah.
For both
she
of you,
was,
probably.
yes.
Mhm.
Well, we were passionate about doing, public interest law that made a difference.
Is
So,
Nancy an attorney?
I'm sorry?
Is Nancy an attorney?
Oh, yes. And she also became a judge after I did.
So we hope we can interview her. Have you had an opportunity to look at the collection, some of the interviews we've done?
I have briefly looked at them, but I haven't had a chance to really delve into them yet.
Barbara Beck was interviewed. She was a judge in Santa Maria, where we live for a
Yes.
while. Mhm.
Yeah.
She's from Mississippi, of all places.
Oh,
So,
that was quite a change.
right. And she was in the service also. And
Yes,
then-
I think I knew that.
Mhm, mhm. A lot of people use the service as a jumping spot for their education, which is good.
Oh, yes.
In our,
Yes.
in our interviews, we interviewed Greta Kammermeyer.
I saw that on the collection.
And, I had no idea how much the women, I had clients that were gay men who had problems and were discharged, but the women I was not aware of, and it's still a problem.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So,
It's more of a harassment problem now, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah. I represented several women in the service.
Mhm. What do we do? about it?
One was really interesting because she was an OBGYN, and she came out and wanted out of the service, and they wouldn't let her go
Right.
because
wanted your skills.
they needed doctors.
That's right.
Uh,
Yeah. But you have questions you'd like to ask us about what we're doing, then feel free to do so.
No, I mean, I think it's really impressive. I'm so glad you're doing it. You know, I've really found, and I'm sure you have too, to some degree, especially when I teach. I'm not teaching anymore, but I used to teach occasional law school classes. That the young people now take it for granted that being lesbian, gay, bi, trans is like, you know, accepted. And they don't understand what people went through
No.
to get them the rights that they currently have. And maybe now they're starting to get it because our rights are so threatened
Yes.
nationally.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really frightening, isn't it? To think this whole marriage thing could dissolve on us.
That's right. Just
That's-
like
Mhm.
the right to abortion is dissolved on us.
Right?
Yes. I think we're next, actually.
Do you? What can we do about it?
Well, you know, if we can mobilize people to vote,
Mhm.
and that's going to be a big thing, I think, in the midterm elections, is getting people to the polls. Democrats, young people, people of color, getting them to the polls to vote, because that's where it's going to matter.
What's the best way to approach that?
Well, I think Stacey Abrams has some pretty good ideas. And she certainly mobilized Georgia
Mhm.
last time around to get the 2 Democratic senators elected. And I know we didn't, you know, it's very hard when you're so far away, but we wrote postcards to get out the vote,
Mhm.
to rural communities. And I know people that did a lot of phone banking and stuff like that. I think that's one of the things you can do from a distance, or a couple of things you can do from a distance. But
How did you win your election to be a judge?
well, it was very interesting, actually. Because I had worked for both Equal Rights Advocates and the Lesbian Rights Project, I had made a lot of contact and cooperation with other civil rights entities, people of color, you know, religious organizations, stuff like that, that did civil rights work. So the Duke Machen was the governor at the time, and he only appointed white male prosecutors. And he had just appointed 2 in San Francisco, and they both had to be up for election the following June. So some friends called and said, Donna, you've got to run against this guy. You've just got to. And I thought, well, you know, what do I have to lose? 3, 4, 5 months of campaigning, but you know, and that's takes its toll. But anyway, so I put my hat in the ring and in fact beat him by a couple hundred votes. It was that close. And that was in 1990. So there have been
Where were you when you got that information?
in San Francisco.
You remember where you were?
Oh, yeah, actually, the vote count, they asked for a recount, of course. So you know, that night, election night, we had an election night party. And by the time the polls closed and sometime afterwards, I knew I was ahead by a minimal amount, but I didn't know what was going to happen with the vote recount. So by the time the final vote came in, I think I was at home when I got the phone call from the campaign's lawyer. But it was stunning, actually. I was even surprised. But I had a lot of support from the civil rights community.
That's great.
And the legal community as well.
So I think, you know, one of the things one of the reasons we started this outside of being bored with COVID was the relationship our daughter had with someone her own age who we found out many years later tried to kill herself because she was lesbian and had an abusive relationship with her father. We had been separated from her for like 20 years and coming back to Los Angeles her mother contacted me. And she's been fine. I mean, she got help. She went to the
Good.
center. She went to UCLA. She's now in San Francisco, actually.
Oh, good.
Right.
Where she should find support.
Right. Well, I think she has a lover. But I mean, just the fact that so many women talk about being suicidal in their coming out times.
Yes.
And quite honestly, and I think how many people do we not hear from because they were successful in their,
Right.
yeah. So we dedicate part of this to that because we're archived at Cal State Dominguez Hills, and they have a big student base there that they introduced to the collection. Which is
Oh,
great.
good.
Very good.
Good.
Got wonderful support from them. And we're also part of the Mazer archives, which are connected with UCLA. But, you know, how I think if we can demonstrate through this and other ways too, how we go through difficulties, but we stay on path. And our
Yes.
relationships, like your partner and Marge, we've been together 45 years and we've done a lot of great things, but a lot of it, the support of each other.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Couldn't have done it without that.
Mhm.
And the support of many other people in the community.
Right.
You know,
Well,
Dell and Phyllis were close friends and definitely, you know, a great support system.
That's one of the first books I ever read about lesbians was their book.
Yes, yes. Well, you know, that's funny you should mention that because when I lived in Maine after I came out, I went to the bookstore and I said, "Do you have any copies of Lesbian Woman?" And the clerk looked at me and said, "Oh, are you an actress?" She
Right.
said, "I'm lesbian."
Right.
Speaking of not knowing what the word meant,
Well, when you think,
Maine was not quite the most progressive place in the world.
well, when you think of the fact that, I mean, had finished my training and still yet if someone were to complain that I was lesbian, I could lose my license.
Yeah,
You know, that didn't turn around until, you know, what was that, the late 1970s
yeah,
and 70s.
right.
So, you know, these kids have no idea of what's standing there fully, you know, documented, if you will, and being just capable of losing it on a voice.
Oh,
Yep.
yes. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so important you're doing this. Yeah.
So are you retired now?
I am retired.
You are. Huh?
Yes.
And now your project is,
The next step.
Well, it's mostly playing with our grandson
Uh,
that we, you know, just totally enjoy. And, you know, I've been active until recently with an organization that works with foster kids. So that has been very rewarding. I was on their board of directors for about 10 years, and that was fabulous. You know, you just have time, and you have time to do things that you didn't have time to do before. I mean, I hardly ever got to read a book between the kids and,
right.
you know, I mean, I read lots of legal tomes, but, you know, just totally for pleasure, which is wonderful.
We have a lot of women that have written books. I had no idea until I started.
Oh, yeah.
And so
yeah.
we're trying to list some of their books so they can be purchased. But it's amazing.
Yes. And some of them are really good, really good.
I'm sure their interviews were good, so the books are probably good too.
Yeah.
Did you have any difficulties being same-sex parents with your children in the schools or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were always the first same-sex family. When they went to preschool, elementary school. And so, you know, people were a little wary, but we went to very progressive schools. So it turned out just fine. And, you know, even our younger daughter, when she was in preschool, there was a little boy named Lucas that she was friends with. And his mother told me one day that he and his father had an argument the day before. And he turned to his father and he said, I want two moms like Megan has.
That's affirming for sure, right?
Yeah.
Kind of this arguing stuff.
So I thought that was pretty affirming.
Very
Yes.
good. Yeah, excellent. Give him a little reward.
Well,
I
I
mean,
think not too many children were exposed to that.
Right.
To
Yeah.
a child who had two mothers or two fathers.
Right. Then, my younger daughter got somewhat harassed in soccer. She played for a co-ed soccer team in elementary school, not by her fellow soccer players, but by people on another team, where she was called a faggot and stuff like that. But that's about the only, I think, real hardship.
Uh-huh.
I know the kids felt different because they were,
Right.
but I don't think they really, suffered because of it.
No, that sports thing. Our daughter is not an athlete, but she tried everything. And
Uh-huh.
so it's she wanted to play soccer because she wanted to wear the dress of the goalie.
Right.
But the parents didn't like her because she wasn't the star.
Yeah.
I finally said, wait a minute, she comes to all the practices. She's committed, she's here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's trying. I mean, that's the most important thing we teach our children.
Exactly. And I think that's a message for young women listening to these videos. Keep trying.
Keep trying. That's right. There are obstacles, but people overcome them.
You find a way. You don't start in Eastern Oregon and become a doctor.
Yeah.
It's a
Well, you
process.
can,
But it's a process.
but
Yeah.
it's a stepwise progression.
Uh-huh.
And I almost got thrown out of college.
Right.
But I changed schools before it happened. Because I
Yes.
could see it coming. And I sort of took care of that for that space and time.
Yeah. And when you know somebody who's been kicked out of college for being gay, it really makes you fearful if you know you're gay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's very close.
Yes.
Did you have that fear for yourself?
No, because I wasn't out yet, but I do know a couple of girls, young women who got kicked out of my college and for being gay. And I know other young women who suspected they might be lesbians were really scared by it,
Right.
and it just makes you closeted and very tense.
We've interviewed some professors that lied about their
Oh, yeah,
sexuality just to be able to get the job.
sure. Oh, yeah, many people.
And now they look back on that. It's really painful.
It is.
Understandable. No criticism from me. Right?
Well, I didn't have to lie, but I was in the closet all through medical school.
Yeah.
4 years of undergrad.
Well, when you're fearful about not being accepted and losing your license, there's a reason to be closeted.
Yeah. Certainly is. That was such a relief when that law came through.
I bet. Yes.
So what would you say has been your most interesting adventure to date?
Well, I think my most interesting adventure has been raising children. I mean,
Oh no, that's a piece of cake.
yeah, right. That's right.
Right.
But I think that starting the Lesbian Rights Project was a huge adventure because, at the time there were a few gay public interest law firms in the country, but none of them dealt with women's issues. They almost all just dealt with sodomy issues. And so there was no one out there doing family law or, insurance or employment cases. And I'm just really proud of what that organization has become over the years.
So what are your dreams for the future?
Well, I hope we have another grandchild.
You really like this. You're an advocate for one of these grandmother groups. I can see it coming.
Yeah. You know, I think the thing I struggle most with, and it really does lead to my dreams, is the country we're leaving to our children and our grandchildren. I'm just so distressed about that. And so, you know, a lot of my conversations and dreams are that this will turn around so that they'll have a healthier environment in which to thrive. That's really,
I can relate to that. This is very distressing what's going on.
yes,
And you think that our daughter is going to be dealing with this.
that's right.
Right.
Yes.
And there are some states apparently won't even go along with medications to prevent pregnancies.
I know. Can you believe that?
To prevent. Now that isn't, you know, kill the fetus. That is prevention.
Right. That's because it's the handmaiden's tale, you know, that these powerful men, mostly white, want to control women and women's bodies. I mean, how many of the men on the Supreme Court have adopted children, unwanted children? How many men on the Supreme Court have financially assisted a single mother trying to raise a family on minimum wage? Zero. They don't care about these kids once they're born.
No.
But anyway, that's
No,
one of my.
Yeah, and caring
agree
about
with
the
that.
mother once the child's born.
Yeah.
well, Amy Coney Barrett. I'm sorry
Yeah.
she has my name, but just
No
the fact
reflection on you,
she said
Diane. No reflection on you.
lesbians will be happy because there'll be more to adopt.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, what a wonderful insight. I mean,
Right.
it's
Really.
it's an insult to her as a woman that she would even think that way.
Exactly.
To the lesbians. And to the child, I mean, children want a parent that's sturdy and steady.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course they do. And they need that.
Mhm.
So
But it's amazing. I mean, it just floors me that they can take the law back so far.
yeah, 50 years.
Mhm.
When I
That's
came
right.
to Los Angeles as an intern, I was on the OBGYN service because you do multiple different services. And every night we would have someone come in septic from an abortion attempt and die. We
Yeah.
were losing at least one woman a night.
That's
And
awful.
go back, I mean, to go backwards is
That's
absurd.
gonna happen.
Mhm.
No, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's just absurd. I mean,
They don't care about all these women
For your-
protesting and
for your daughter and for my daughter, okay, it's a trip to Japan.
Yes.
But for those women, they don't have that opportunity.
They don't. They
Ah.
don't.
So what's your favorite fairy tale or children's story?
I was very fond of Good Night Moon.
Were you? Ah, that's great.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Mhm.
But you know, you mentioned books by women. There's a new book that just came out by a San Francisco author that I got called Mama and Mommy and Me in the Middle. And it's this wonderful story about how one of the moms has to travel for work and what it's like to miss your mom.
Huh.
And in my grandson's family, one of his moms does have to travel. So I got the book for him and they love it.
Ah, that's great.
Yes.
Great. So thank you. Stay in touch with us.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.